Welcome back to Old Fart Engineering. Today I'm going to be showing you how to build my radius jig. Now this is one that I have from my large belt grinder, my 2x72. But what I want to do is I want to make one of these for my smaller jet 2x48 grinder. So this is obviously too long. So we're going to make a new one so you see the whole process. We're also going to make the interchangeable bongs that fit, so you can fit different diameter holes when you're doing your rounding over of your radius. So let's go ahead and begin. We'll start by cutting a 10-inch piece off of this scrap so it fits exactly the platen for this machine, because we're going to be holding it on with small C-clamps. So let's do that first. All right, so to begin, we're going to cut off a 10-inch long piece of this 1x3 rectangular stock. All right, I'll meet you back over at the workbench. All right, so here we have our piece cut to length. Now the reason that I like using the 1x3 is that these mini C-clamps fit perfectly inside without interfering in the movement of your metal on the top. So this is an easy way to clamp these down. We put one on each side to clamp it to the platen, and then we have a complete open area. So if we're doing longer pieces, this works very well. Now you certainly could make it out of a piece of 1/4 inch solid if you wanted, but then you will have those clamps in your way. So this is the way I like doing it. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to mark our center, and we're actually going to drill it as close to the front as possible, because the key here is you want to be able to adjust back and forth depending on the size of metal that you're trying to do a radius on. So by setting it all the way to the front, we've got the maximum range of movement with our jig to adjust. So we're going to go ahead and mark the center on this and then go over to the mill and drill our hole. Now we're going to drill a 13/64 hole because we're tapping this for a 1/4 inch bolt. All right, so let's go over to the mill. All right, so we're at the mill now. We're going to go ahead and drill a 13/64 hole. Since I said we are going to tap this. Now we're going to be using a stainless steel bolt that we will then weld in and cut off, but the tapping helps us ensure that it's going to be nice and straight. So let's go ahead and drill through this. All right, that's all it takes right there. Let's go back over to the workbench and we'll tap this. All right, so we're going to go ahead and tap through this piece. I want to try to keep it as straight as possible. All right, and that is tapped on one side. Now the other side, we're going to go ahead and drill a clearance hole on it, because we really only need the threads on the bottom side of this. So we're going to take our drill and just drill a clearance hole right here. So we got a 1/4 inch clearance hole. Now we're using a stainless steel bolt. And the reason I use the stainless steel, even though we're working with mild steel here, is that I don't want this to rust and become tight in my holes. Also, for making our little bongs for our sizes, we're using 304 stainless as well. So we'll get this threaded in, weld it, and then we'll cut it off, just like this one is here. And then these fit on there nicely for when we're making larger holes. All right? So let me set up the welder. We'll weld this in, we'll cut this off, and we'll be good to go. We'll be right back. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and just weld the bottom of the screw here that's coming through. Now, you certainly don't have to weld this. You could just put permanent Loctite or even JB weld on the threads and it will hold this in place just fine. I just prefer to weld it, but it's certainly not necessary. And that's all it takes. We'll go ahead and grind that smooth then so it sits flat on the surface. But that's the extent of the welding for this project. Okay, so the weld is cooled off. I've got my flap wheel over here. We're going to go ahead and just smooth this out so that it sits flat on the platen. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and measure 3/8 of an inch. Actually, let me double check because I want them to be the same so I can use the same bonds. This one's actually 5/8 of an inch. So we'll do 5/8 here. And then with the cutoff wheel, I'm just going to cut this off. And that's all it takes. We'll go ahead, I'm going to get a file and sand and just smooth over that corner. And then this should fit right on there just like it does on that one. Okay, we'll be back in a moment and we're going to start making all of our adapters for our different sizes. All right, so we're over here at the lathe now. But I want to make it perfectly clear. You don't need a lathe to do this. You can just do this on a drill press, just drilling a hole into the end of the stock. I just have a lathe, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. We're going to start by putting a little oil. We're just going to face off this piece. This is a piece of 304 1/2-inch stainless steel. I've cut it to 1 inch. We're going to face off one side, bevel it, and then drill it. And then we're going to take the other side and bring it down to dimension because I only want it 3/4 of an inch long. So let's start by facing it. All right, I'm going to change out my tool to put a chamfer on this. You always want to make sure that you're clear of your chuck before you start this. And we're just going to put a little chamfer on the edge just to break the corner. And that's all it needs. I'm going to go ahead and insert my chuck. I have a 1/4-inch drill bit already mounted in it. Now I've got my little piece of tape there set so that I drill a 5/8 inch deep hole. Now one thing you want to be aware of, 304 stainless is very tough. So I'm going to put a little bit of oil on my drill bit there so I don't break it. I'm going to feed it in nice, slow and easy. Getting quite a bit of wobble with this bit. I should have probably done a center hole, but I thought it would have been fine. Put a little extra oil on there. I mean, this is not a high precision piece that we're making, but I really should have put a center hole first. Now, I'm using stainless, like I said. I just like stainless because it's not going to corrode on me sitting around in the shop. But you could very easily make this using just normal mild steel, and you can easily buy different diameter mild steel rods at the big box stores like Home Depot or Lowe's. or even Ace Hardware. You can also just buy different size bolts and cut them off and use the shank of the bolt, because you really only need a small piece to do this. So you can certainly do that. It's probably the cheapest way, is just buy a couple of stainless steel bolts in the diameters that you think you're going to need, and you can always add more to it whenever you need another size. That's what I do. Every time I need a new size, I just come over here to the lathe, take a piece of stainless bar stock, and I make the size that I need. Alright, so we've drilled this. We're going to go ahead and flip it around. It's going to be nice and hot now, so I got to be careful I don't burn myself. But we'll flip it around and take the other side down and clean it up, and then put a chamfer on it as well. So I'm going to grab my little pair of pliers here so I don't burn my fingers. Just going to flip this around. I actually regret not having center drilled it, because I did notice my hole's off center. But it's not a big deal for what we're using this for, so it'll be fine. Let me change out my tool, because I'm going to bring this end in. I've got a 1/4 inch to remove. Right about there. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and change my tool out so I can put a chamfer on that edge. Again, I want to make sure that I'm clear of the chuck as I do this. That should be good right there. Let me just drive this in a little bit just to break that corner. That's all it needs. Alright, let's go ahead and take this out. Again, it's going to be hot, so I'm going to grab it with my pliers. But we'll go ahead and cool this off, and we'll take it over and test fit it. So I'll see you at the workbench. So now we're back at the workbench. Here we have the original one, which is for my larger bench belt grinder, the 2x72. Here now is the little one for the 2x48. Both of them have the same 1/4 inch center, so my little bongs will fit on either one. So we have a 1/2 inch and a 3/4 inch bong. If I need a 5/8, I can make that when I need it. Again, you could buy stainless steel, you can use mild steel. You can weld this in, or you can epoxy it in. I've gone ahead and taken the little scrap piece of 1 1/4 inch flat bar. I drilled it centered based on the dimensions. So the hole is 5/8 in from the side and 5/8 inch down from the top. So we'll get a perfect radii on this. We're going to go set this up on the belt grinder, and I'll show you how it works. All right, so now we're over here at the belt grinder. We go ahead and set this up. I'm not going to tighten it yet. I'm just going to get it set, because we're going to adjust the depth of this piece based on the metal that we're grinding the radii to. Okay, so it's just on there loosely right now. Go ahead and put our piece of metal on here, and we're going to slide this forward until we're touching the platen with the flat portion there, because that's the peak of our radii. Let's go ahead and tighten these down. Okay. Go ahead and turn on the machine. Let's flip it on. And now all we have to do is just first one side and the other. And there you have it. A nice radii on any kind of a bracket that you're making, or a mounting surface, or just to clean up an edge so you don't have square corners. All this needs is a coat of red paint and we'll be done. So there we have it. The finished radius jig with a 1/2 inch adapter. We have a 3/4 inch adapter already on the other jig that we can use on here as well. Please remember to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon for notifications, and thank you for watching Old Fart Engineering. See you again soon.